Hello everybody, I'm Gwen Campbell-Mindes. Welcome to Gwen's Bookish Ramblings. And this is the penultimate book of the Oz series. There are some outlier other books, but I hadn't read them before, so I'm not counting them to this series because this is for books that I have already read and enjoyed. I am not counting the books that were written after L. Frank Baum died because I tried a few of those and they weren't as good. So, we will be stopping with the book after this one because that is the last of the official Oz series as far as I am concerned. So, The Magic of Oz is by its fundamental opening impetus, it is so very much of what an Oz book is about, but oddly enough, this one isn't quite as aimless as we are used to, despite its initial impetus being something that one would almost expect would lead to a lot of aimless wandering about. What happens in this book is Dorothy, at the start of this book, it is Ozma's birthday is imminent, and Dorothy decides that she needs to find Ozma a really great birthday present. So she starts asking around, trying to find out what everybody else was giving Ozma so that she could maybe get an idea. So she goes around and asks various people if they have any idea what to get Ozma, and I will explain this picture in a moment. Along the way, she runs into Trot and Cap'n Bill, and neither of them have an idea of what to get Ozma because they want to get her something really good. She is, of course, the queen of all Oz, but also she is their friend and they really, really like her, and she is super awesome, and it's really hard to get an immortal fairy who can have anything she wants by waving a wand. It's really hard to get her a good present. You know, if you think getting your Aunt Gertrude a good present is tough, this is way worse. So everybody's sort of trying to figure out what to get her. And the glass cat mentions idly to Trot and Bill and Dorothy that there is a magical flower on an island that basically it constantly transforms from one kind of flower to the next. It's like in every flower in a pot. And the way that it got onto the island was being made of glass. It was able to just walk under the water straight up over to the island. And I think that the fish on the left has a pipe in its mouth, which is fascinating because I would be fascinated to know what exactly the fish is like doing with the pipe that is like smoking. Anyways, so this is the glass cat walking underwater. Anyway, so Trot and Cap'n Bill decide that they're going to venture out and convince the glass cat to put its ego aside long enough to lead them to this flower, and off they go on their adventure, which ends in tears because they wind up discovering on the island that the reason nobody has taken the flower before is that once you set foot on that island, your feet immediately grow roots and you start to shrink until you shrink away to nothing. So it's kind of a booby trap. Anyways, Dorothy eventually comes up with the idea of baking a cake and then convincing the Wizard of Oz to help her by getting a bunch of tiny monkeys and hiding them in the cake, and then they would hop out of the cake and do amazing monkey acrobatics, like 12 tiny monkeys. And the wizard decides to go along with this, and they would make it sort of a co-present from both of them. Meanwhile, a young man from the edge of the Munchkin lands of Oz discovers, the thing was that his father had, learned that magic was outlawed in Oz, and even though he had used to be a sorcerer, it was now illegal, so he gets rid of all of his stuff. But the thing is that he had learned a magic word that allowed him to transform into anything at any time at will. So he doesn't want to necessarily give up the chance to use that if Ozma ever changed her mind, so he hid a slip of paper with describing, he hid the description of the word and how to pronounce it, because you have to pronounce it exactly right, or else it doesn't work, and he hid that away so that if the day ever came that Ozma agreed to allow him to do that again, that he would have it findable. Anyways, his son trips over it, finds the word, and memorizes it, and then decides he's going to go adventure. So he goes adventuring, he turns himself into a bird and leaves Oz, and winds up next door and runs into the old Gnome King, the first one, who has apparently managed to become evil again despite having claimed he had reformed previously. So the Gnome King convinces this young boy, this young man, that they should continue to adventure, that they should go and take over Oz, because he wants revenge. And he says to the boy, and he says to the kid, "Hey, you could get power and wealth, and wouldn't that be awesome?" And the kid, being smart enough to know that the gnome is tricksy, but not smart enough to think that maybe being a king is way more work than it's worth, goes along with this. And their plan, because while Ozma's magic picture can show her anything in Oz, and Glinda's magic book will show her what anyone is doing in Oz, it only shows them what human type people are doing, not what animals are doing. So if they go and gather an army of animals, pictured here, including King Gugu the leopard, they will be able to take over Oz. And so they go and they visit a forest full of vicious animals that could help them take over Oz, and the former Gnome King, Ruggedo, lies through his teeth, and he basically says, "The Oz people are planning on enslaving you all, so you'd better take over before they do. And then we'll turn them into animals, and they'll have to live in the forest, and you can all be humans and live in their fine towns and stuff." And Ruggedo convinces the kid to transform them into animals that have the bodies of monkeys, the wings of eagles, and the heads of lions, and call themselves Limon-Eags, which and try to pretend that they are animals just like the others who live in the sky and are there to help. Here you are, Limon-Eags. I just love the illustrations in these books. They're so good. Anyways, so Dorothy and the Wizard arrive, Dorothy riding on the Cowardly Lion and the Wizard riding on the Hungry Tiger. And they try to convince the animal, and their plan was to just, request some monkeys join them, except the Munchkin kid kind of panics. And he transforms a whole bunch of people into a bunch of different animals, transforms King Gugu the leopard into a fat old lady, and then flails his way out of there. He's just blind panic. Luckily, after much going back and forth, the Wizard manages to overhear the kid saying the magic word, and figures it out and manages to stop both the old Gnome King and the kid from wreaking any more havoc by changing them into nuts, literally a walnut and a pecan, I think, and then transforms everybody back into what they're supposed to be. And then the glass cat catches up to them and says, "Oh, hey guys, Trot and Cap'n Bill? Well, they've literally put down roots and are trapped on this island and might shrink away to nothing and vanish forever." So what started off as an attempt to get a bunch of monkeys for a cake turns into a rescue mission. They rescue Trot and Cap'n Bill, and this is a picture of Ozma with Betsy Bobbin and Dorothy and Trot, because Ozma is Queen of Oz, but she is also a girl like the others, and so while there is always a consciousness that she is Ozma, the Queen of Oz, they also, they're also friends, and they're just four girls who like to hang around and do stuff that four girls like to do when they're hanging around together. So that is pictured here, and it's the last picture that I took from that. And the thing about this is it's an oddly focused story, but it kind of has that same aimlessness of Oz, because, one, the way we meet various animals, we meet the duck that wants to live alone because it is incredibly misanthropic, and it hates everybody, and it has a tiny little duck-sized diamond palace that it loves. And when Dorothy says, "My goodness," and the duck takes deep offense at this, and he's like, "Look, I don't care if you don't like my palace. I like my palace, and that's what's important, is that I like where I live." Which, frankly, I think is a very valid way to view things, because, really, what does it matter what anyone else thinks if you like where you live, as long as it's not a health hazard? But I don't think the Duck's Diamond Castle probably is not a health hazard to the duck. Anyways, but he's a magic duck and does various magic duck things. Like growing giant toadstools so that Trot and Cap'n Bill can at least sit down instead of sitting down on the ground and finding their behinds taking root as well as their feet. Anyway, so the thing about this book is you have the Gnome King's plot, which kind of trundles along in the background, and you have these three stories that they do. What's interesting is you have these three plots, and they do wind up intertwining. They do wind up connecting with each other. They do wind up working together, and it's one of the genius things about this book is how smoothly these three stories that seem to start off just going in completely different directions do connect very well with each other. That, at first you bounce around from person to person and you don't really see exactly how they're going to connect, but Baum does it wonderfully smoothly, and it's really, really nice. There are, of course, a couple of Deus Ex Machina in this, not least of which being, the wizard hears the magic word and that solves all of their problems. But it's, other than that, it leads together very, very well. And, misanthropic duck with a diamond palace. How can you dislike a book that has a misanthropic duck with a diamond palace? Sure, it's not in there very long, but misanthropic duck with a diamond palace. Some concepts just stand on their own. Anyway, I think that's probably about all that I'm going to have to say about this book. So the next one in the Oz series that I will be talking about will be the final Oz book. And you will hear about it then. So that is, I guess, everything that I have to say on this, and I will see you all next week.